Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Radha Madhav Radha Madhav Radhe Jai Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe Jai Radha Gopala Radha Gopala Radhe Jai Radha Shyam Sundar Radha Shyam Sundar Radhe Jai Radha Madan Mohan Radha Madan Mohan Radhe Jai Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Radhe Jai Shri Radhe Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada Ki
Hare Krishna. Can everybody hear me, or anybody hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Hare Krishna. So, welcome everyone for today's Sunday feast class. As the Kirtan was going on, weeks now that I've heard a live Kirtan. So the Kirtan Nand Gopal Prabhu said or sang was almost our live Kirtan through the Zoom meeting, but was nice to hear it. And similarly, it's very nice to see you all. It's been 3 weeks. I hope everybody is safe and sheltered from coronavirus that is out there. And this is also an opportunity for us to look for new ways to continue our spiritual journey. And this arrangement that we are doing with Zoom meeting is one of those. Before we begin today, I want to make some mention something. So there is a change in our Sunday program. So generally, as you know, every Sunday we used to cover a verse of Bhagavad Gita. Going forward, our Sunday lectures or Sunday feast lectures will be on any topic. So it depends on the speaker. So they'll pick a topic, but it will not be a continuous study of Bhagavad Gita. However, because we are shifting this for Sunday, there will be a continuous study of Bhagavad Gita, but for that we have everyday classes except Sunday. So, all 6 days of the week, there is a class on Bhagavad Gita at 7 p.m. And there was an email sent out. There'll be another email that will go out to a broader distribution. So you have now 2 opportunities for Bhagavad Gita continuous classes. Please join every day at 7 p.m. And our Sunday classes will be on specific topic. So our plan or agenda for today, last Sunday, we started on the auspicious occasion of Ramanavami, we started Ram Katha. So last Sunday, we completed up to when Lord Ram start his exile. So he, goes, he leaves the kingdom of Ayodhya for 14 years and he reaches the out forests. So our plan for today is, I was planning to, Prabhupada in Bhagavatam has given a very good summary of entire Ramayana in 1 page or 1.5 page. So I was planning to read that so that we can hear the entire pastime of Ramayana as in Prabhupada's words in a concise manner. And then I have some notes prepared on the lessons from Ramayana. So I was hoping to share that with you after we've read Prabhupada's summary of Ramayana. So with that, I'll seek your blessings and permission to begin. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Pada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenbandhu Jagatpate Gopesa Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So with that, as I said, I'll start with the summary of Ramayana pastime by Srila Prabhupada. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10. And at the beginning of the chapter, Prabhupada gives a summary. So I'll read this a page and a half, and then we'll go through the lessons on Ramayana. Lord Ramchandra went with Vishwamitra and killed Rakshasas like Maricha. After breaking the stout and strong bow known as Haradhanu, the Lord married Mother Sita and cut down the prestige of Parshuram. To obey the order of his father, he entered the forest, accompanied by Lakshmana and Sita. There he cut off the nose of Shrupnakha and killed the associates of Ravana, headed by Khar and Dhushan. Ravana's kidnapping of Sita Devi was the beginning of this demon's misfortune. When Maricha assumed the form of a golden deer, Lord Ramchandra went to bring the deer to please Sita Devi. But in the meantime, Ravana took advantage of the Lord's absence to kidnap her. When Sita Devi was kidnapped, Lord Ramchandra, accompanied by Lakshmana, searched for her throughout the forest. In the course of this search, they met Jatayu. Then the Lord killed the demon Kabanda and the commander Vali and established a friendly relationship with Sugriva. After organizing the military strength of the monkeys and going with them to the shore of the sea, the Lord awaited the arrival of Samudra, the ocean personified. But when Samudra did not come, the Lord, the master of Samudra, became angry. Then Samudra came to the Lord with great haste and surrendered to him, wanting to help him in every way. The Lord then attempted to bridge the ocean, and with the help of advice from Vibhishana, he attacked Ravana's capital Lanka. Previously, Hanuman, the eternal servant of the Lord, had set fire to Lanka, and now with the help of Lakshmana, the forces of Lord Ramachandra killed all the Rakshasa soldiers. Lord Ramachandra personally killed Ravana. Mandodari and other wives lamented for Ravana, and in accordance with Lord Ramachandra's order, Vibhishana performed the funeral ceremonies for all the dead in the family. Lord Ramachandra then gave Vibhishana the right to rule Lanka and also granted him a long duration of life. The Lord delivered Sita Devi from the Ashoka forest and carried her in a flower airplane to his capital Ayodhya, where he was received by his brother Bharat. When Lord Ramchandra entered Ayodhya, Bharat brought his wooden shoes. Vibhishana and Sugriva held a whisk and fan. Hanuman carried an umbrella. Shatrughna carried the Lord's bow and 2 quivers. And Sita Devi carried a water pot containing water from holy places. Angada carried a sword and Jambavan carried a shield. After Lord Ramachandra, accompanied by Lord Lakshmana and Mother Sita Devi, met all his relatives, the great sage Vashishta enthroned him as king. So this was a very good summary that Prabhupada wrote in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 10, just in the beginning of Chapter 10. So since we started the pastime of Lord Ramayana last Sunday, I wanted to complete it. So now what I plan to share is basically, some lessons that we can glean from the pastimes of Lord Ram. So I'll share my screen. So for those who are connected through their computer, they'll be able to see it. Others could just hear. Is everybody able to see, those who are connected through computer? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I also want to mention that in case I lose my connection and I get disconnected, I will dial back. So, if suddenly you see something wrong with the technology, please hang on or dial back and we'll start again. So, we just heard the quick short description of Ramayana pastime as written by Srila Prabhupada. And so I wanted to share some of the lessons. So, I was thinking it would be worthwhile to share 4 lessons as I kind of, related to Ramayana as I was reading it. So the 4 lessons are, we'll know something about the self and supreme. I think this is a very foundational lesson or philosophy that we hear many times, and through every pastime of Lord this comes through. So we'll see how that comes through in Lord Ram's pastime. So we'll know about self and supreme. I was thinking we will also talk a little about the importance of association. Again, this has been many times influenced or said by our acharyas and senior Vaishnavas how important this is. So we'll see how that is applicable or coming out from the pastime of Ramayana. We'll see about selfless devotion. There are many examples of selfless devotion throughout the pastime. So we'll see some examples of those and what learning can we get for ourselves. And fourth, we'll talk something about the householder's dilemma. So throughout the pastime, we see some instances or situations where different characters in the pastime go through this dilemma. So we'll look at that. Any questions before I begin? Does the agenda make sense? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. So self and supreme. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells that, in every yuga, Lord appears, and he basically appears for three primary reasons. One is to take care of his devotees. Second is to, end the miscreants or demons. And third is to establish the religious principles. So in the pastime of Ramayana also, we see that Lord Ram appeared, and the primary reason of his appearance, as most of us would know, or one of the primary reasons, was to kill Ravan. Ravan at that time was the most demoniac personality that existed on earth. He was very powerful, very learned, but misdirected. And, the strength of Ravan was so much that nobody could do anything about it. So basically, no demigod could do anything about it. So they just waited. They basically relied on Lord Vishnu to appear and free them from this, this problem named Ravana. So we all know Ravan was like a, demoniac personality, and Lord Ram, how he kind of killed Ravan and, freed earth from his curses. But if we back off a little bit and see like where the origin of this is, right? So there's another pastime in Srimad Bhagavatam about Jai and Vijay. So we know that Jai and Vijay in Vaikuntha were eternal servants of Lord. They were his gatekeeper of Vaikuntha. And then there was a time when four Kumaras, which were, devotees, they came to see Lord Vishnu. And four Kumaras were, the purest of all, have no sign of any of the material quality, no, anger or pride. And they came to see Lord Vishnu, and it so happened that Jai and Vijay stopped them. And they said Jai and Vijay did not allow them to see Lord Vishnu on the pretext that Lord was resting. And four Kumaras did not like that, right? So they said, Lord is always available for his devotees. How can you stop us from seeing Lord? So the argument between Jai and Vijay and four Kumaras went on. And it so happened that four Kumaras, even though they were purest of souls, have no signs of anger, but anger came in for Kumaras. And it so happened that they ended up cursing Jai and Vijay, saying that you are not fit to be in Vaikuntha, so you should take birth in the mortal planet, so Earth. Then after that, Lord Vishnu comes there, and he kind of, tries to please four Kumaras. Lord Vishnu, we all know, Brahmanas were his favorite. He is very respectful to all the Brahmanas. So even if there is a fault of Brahmanas, rightly so, as Lord Vishnu explains himself in Srimad Bhagavatam, in that pastime, he tried to please four Kumaras, but he approved of the punishment or the curse that four Kumaras gave to Jai Vijay. So because of that curse or punishment from four Kumaras, Jai Vijay agreed to take 3 births as demon on earth instead of, so they were given a choice whether they can choose 7 births as devotee or 3 births as demon. And because they could not imagine being separated from Lord for 7 births, they chose for 3 births as demon. And one of the birth was as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. So Ravana and Kumbhakarna were basically none other than Jai and Vijay. So if you look here, the transition, Jai and Vijay in Vaikuntha, servants of Supreme Lord, his gatekeeper, his own gatekeeper, takes birth as Ravan, a very demoniac personality that nobody would like, and everybody was having problems because of him. And so it's a quite a contrast. But what this pastime kind of tells us, that it brings up a very important point that Srila Prabhupada and all great acharyas have mentioned, is that we are the eternal souls. Everyone, including us and others, are part and parcel of the Lord. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya also explained to Sanatan Goswami, Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas. So Lord Sanatan Goswami asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who am I? And in response to that question, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains that you are a pure soul who is part and parcel of the Supreme. He explains that we are marginal potency of the Lord, in the sense that we have relationship with both Supreme world or the spiritual world and with the material world. Lord Chaitanya also explains that we are qualitatively same as Supreme, but still different. And the examples given is like a sun and a sun ray. A ray of sun is qualitatively the same as sun, but still not same, in the same magnitude as sun. So it's same quality, but still different. So what can we glean from this, right? So the lessons for us is basically to know who we are, right? So the primary, we are a spiritual soul. So we are the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and our eternal position is to be his servant. But just like in the pastime of Jai and Vijay, they exhibited a pride or argumentative mentality when they were arguing with four Kumaras, and as a result, they had to come back to the material world. Similarly, we are the part and parcel of the Supreme. Our eternal position is to be his servant. But because of exhibition of some traits that are not, that do not belong in the spiritual world, we end up coming here and taking birth in the material world. As part of that, we get the material body, which is made up of 5 gross elements, and we get a subtle body, ego, mind, and intelligence. And because we get in touch with the material world, the ignorance, we get covered by ignorance. And ignorance is nothing but forgetting our eternal position, that we are part and parcel of the Supreme. Because of this ignorance, religion seems irreligion, and irreligion seems religion to us. Right. So the key lesson here is just understanding that supreme knowledge, that we are the spiritual soul, and our eternal position is to be servant of the Supreme. And also, just as we are spirit soul, everybody else around us is also a spirit soul. Looking at anyone, we cannot tell what the path they are taking on their spiritual journey. Right. So going back to the pastime of Ravan, of Ramayana, where Ravan is killed by Lord Ram, and the origin of that is in the pastime of Jai and Vijay. We cannot judge anybody by looking at, their material aspects, because they might be on a spiritual journey that we cannot even fathom. So since we are the spiritual beings, we are the spirit soul, what is the objective of our life? So as Prabhupada and all great acharyas explain, the objective of our life is to go back to Godhead. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given a path for that, which has been then institutionalized by acharyas and Prabhupada, is by the congregational chanting. So our way of exhibiting bhakti is basically by the congregational chanting, because of which the past impressions of our heart get clean, and we can come out of the ignorance and relish the supreme knowledge, which is by establishing our relationship with the supreme again. So at this point, I'll stop and see if anybody has any questions or comments related to this pastime. Prasraj Prabhu, I don't know if you could unmute everyone for a minute and see if anybody has any questions.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhu.
So, Prabhuji, just would like to add a comment, not a question.
Yes, Prabhu, sure.
And please correct me. So, as you said, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave us a congregation as a way to go back to Godhead. What I have read, the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood was that however many births he takes, that he always want to be a dasanu das. So, and that is what I think. I mean, I don't know whether I have heard. I mean, I don't know whether Mahaprabhu said he want to go back to Godhead, but he go even beyond that, saying, however many births he may need to take, he would like to be like a dasanu das of devotees. That's what I would like to add.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you for bringing this up. And you're right. The mood that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had was, all I want is just to be engaged in the service of Supreme Lord, birth after birth. Don't care about liberation, don't care about any other material benefits. Just, desire is to be engaged in the loving service of the Lord. So yes, you are right, Prabhu. That's the okay. There was some echo. Any other point or questions? Okay, so we'll move to the second one. So the second lesson is association. And we all know how much of emphasis is given to association, by our acharyas and Prabhupada. Just the framework of ISKCON when it was introduced was temple, and devotees would come and live together in the temple. Was the whole idea was to get the association. So in the past time of Ramayana, I thought we could look at one contrast, which is, we all know the reason for Lord Ram to go to the forest was because Kekai demanded that from her husband, Dashrath Maharaj, who was Lord Ram's father. And Kekai, why did she end up demanding that? So Kekai, was in total Ram consciousness. So in the sense that she loved Lord Ram more than Bharat. There was no difference. She did not consider any difference between Lord Ram and her own son, Bharat. But then somehow, when the coronation of Lord Ram was, somebody is drawing on my slides. I don't know how, but so when it was declared that Lord Ram would be coronated, and then Mantra approached KK, and we heard this pastime in last Sunday class. And Mantra, just as the name suggests, she churned KK's mind. Now KK is a devotee. She was in total Ram consciousness, and Mantra kind of churned her mind, saying what if Ram becomes the king, what that means to her. And just by Mantra trying it, it did not impact KK first time, second time, and third time it impacted KK in the sense that she lost her Ram consciousness at that time. And she got overcome by other material traits, in the sense that she then demanded from her husband that Ram should be sent to forest for 14 years and her son Bharat should be made the king. But this is an example of how KK got influenced by Mantra. So a devotee, by association, KK is a devotee, but association of Mantra kind of turned her around 180 degrees, totally opposite. But a contrast to that, if you see, then KK ended up demanding. Dasarath Maharaj ended up telling Lord Ram that he needs to go to forest. Lord Ram agreed. When Bharat came back, same KK told Bharat what has happened and how she has wanted, Lord Ram be sent to forest so he can be made the king. But Bharat, also another devotee in Ram consciousness, did not get influenced by KK. Right? So it's a contrast where one devotee in an association of Mantra or bad association get distracted, whereas another devotee also in the same association or similar association is very firm. Right? So association is important for us a lot, because if we are on our spiritual journey, then we should associate with like-minded. And Prabhupada gives this example of iron rod. If you put an iron rod in fire, it becomes a fire, which means like you are more likely or almost certain to get some traits or at least the attacks of those traits if you keep that association. So people who are materialistic want to keep the association of materialistic, and by that they become more materialistic. It is also said that if you keep the association of a sadhu, then you get good. That's a good association to keep. And it is said that even a movement association of a sadhu can change your entire life, in the sense that can bring you on a path of spirituality and God consciousness. So the point I want to make here is we do get affected by association, right? And if anybody of us thinks that we are not affected by association, that's a good indication that we are actually affected by the association. So if you look back at the contrast, KK got influenced by Mantra, but Bharat didn't get influenced by KK. What could be the reason that these contrasts kind of comes about, that two devotees acted in a different way under kind of a similar situation? So one of the rationale could be that if you have a slightest desire in your heart, a wrong desire, then the association is going to flame it up, right? So when Mantra was talking to KK, she gave several arguments that Ram will become the king, your son will not be the king. She said, that's fine. But eventually what struck KK was when Mantra said that Kaushalya would be the, would be the big queen and you'll be like her servant. And that's what basically hit KK, and that's when she turned around. So if you have a slightest fear or a desire in your heart, the association, or when the attack of Maya happens through the association, that fear or desire gets flamed up. And basically that's what makes us react in a particular way. So KK had this slightest fear or concern that Kaushalya will become the principal queen, and then she would be her servant. So that kind of Mantra's argument along the same lines, twisted her intelligence. But on the other side, Bharat had no such fear or anything. Never in his heart it appeared that he wants to be the king or he does not want to be the servant of his brother Lord Sri Ram. So when KK made her arguments to Bharat, none of that was appealing to Bharat. In fact, it was like poisonous to him. Just the idea of becoming a king when his elder brother was there, not even that, sending his elder brother, Lord Ram, to forest, banishing him to forest for 14 years, did not have, was very, was not at all making sense to him. So the idea here is, yes, association is important. And the way association or Maya works through association is it flames up any subdued or dormant desires or fears that are in our heart. Now, because in our lives, right, we are not perfect. We are on we're making efforts to become more spiritual, but none of us is perfect or as strong situated, or most of us. Our best bet is to stay away from bad association. Because the association, if we keep the association, we will come to a cross path where, the chances are we'll struggle, or the tough times would be there where we'll struggle to keep our intelligence together and keep ourselves on properly situated on the spiritual path. I remember when, even before coming to Krishna consciousness, when I was in India, most of my friends, and I wasn't into Krishna consciousness, but I used to go to the temples and all that. But most of my friends used to smoke and drink and do all those things that teenagers generally did. And I never smoked. But all the time in their association, I would be like under tremendous pressure to smoke. And I might have even tried once, I can't remember completely. But the point being, the kind of association you keep, you would be under pressure to become just like your association. Also, like after another example I can share, personal experiences. After coming to Krishna consciousness, we always, it appeared early on that we were bumping into a choice whether we choose a Krishna conscious activity or a non-Krishna conscious activity. Because our friend circle was there, and those people were not into Krishna consciousness, their choices, their means of entertainment were totally different. So we were always running into this choice of, oh, we got this going in temple or related to temple, but we got this going with our other friends. If we don't go there, they'll feel bad. But the right thing to do is to attend the program at the temple or a spiritual program. So the point is, keeping two kinds of association or different association, well, definitely there will be instances where we'll run into situations where we got to pick one over the other or make that choice. So key is decide who. So in the previous lesson we said who we are, what is our objective. If that is our objective, then choose the association you want to keep that will help you on that path. And because we are not perfect, we are still trying, improving our sadhana, it is better to stay in that association as long as we can and minimize our exposure to other kind of associations, which would also, minimize and instances where our intelligence might be under attack. Any questions or comments on this lesson? Anybody wants to share their personal experiences? Sorry, was anybody saying anything?
Prabhu, so I might just have a small question. So
Yes.
the importance of association is good, but in the material world, in between devotees as well, when you associate really closely, there is a saying that familiarity brings contempt. And as a struggling sadhaka, everyone has the influence of the six enemies in one or other way. And when you are associating, one of which may show up. So during those instances, when someone is struggling and one of the enemy shows up in the association, and which can be deteriorating for the whom you are associating, then how to balance that? Because association is important, but simultaneously your purification is also ongoing, right? So you are going to make mistakes. So how to balance that?
So keep the association and keep making mistakes. In the sense, like, so it's very natural that mistakes will be there, but the idea is still keep the association and try to do your best. So there's no perfect answer. So I understand it does become very tricky and challenging at times, where you would feel that, yeah, I'm keeping the association, but it seems like difficult. Either, if I'm understanding your question, it could be either feeling like it's very difficult to keep the association, or the other is I'm still making too many mistakes, so I'm not helping my associates, kind of thing. So Prabhu, which point are you making?
In my case, it's quite evident. It's the second one.
The second. Yeah, so second one, the short answer is, does not just keep the association and keep trying to improve. So it's a journey. Don't think too much about the mistakes. Everybody make mistakes. As long as they are not intentional, you should not be making mistakes intentionally. As long as you have tried your best not to make a mistake, still if a mistake happens, you just take it at its face value, take the whatever lesson you can get out of it, and move on. But keep the association. Association is the key. The way sometimes, so because purification needs to happen, and because we're keeping the association, those are the sources where we're going to get the purification from. So we should be open to accepting that as a purification. And sometimes Maya would act in a way where we would feel, why do I have a need to be here? Like, it's an easy solution not to associate and just go in a different path, but that's not the right path. So that's where the struggle between mind and intelligence comes. Generally, our immediate action comes out of our mind. But if you think through it and take your time, then intelligence would kick in. The idea is to act out of intelligence and not out of mind. Second is, we should always doubt ourselves. This is my personal kind of a experience or realization. Whatever you feel is right, you should put on a different hat and say, let me doubt myself. Right? So the first thought that crosses your mind, you say that, yeah, that's it, that feels right, but it may not be the right. So you should always doubt yourself, which would give a chance to the intelligence to correct and overcome the mind. Because first actions always generally emerge out of mind, and mind is at a bodily platform. It all mind cares about is your body, or its own body, and intelligence care about what's right, what's wrong. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it's extremely well answered. Thank you, Prabhu.
Okay, so we have 11 more minutes. We'll move on since we are doing question answer along as we go. So hopefully we don't need much time, but I was thinking I was going to run out of time, but seems like we'll be on time. So I'll move on to the third lesson. So selfless devotion. So if you look, the entire Granth of Ramayana is basically a story of devotion, bhakti. And, you know, there's so many characters in Ramayana. We know the example of Lakshman, you know, who, when Lord Ram was banished to forest, he decided to come along. Lord Ram said no, but he insisted. And Lakshman got married at the same time when Lord Ram got married. So Lakshman left his wife and decided to go with Lord Ram. And we know that he did not sleep for 14 years as long as Lord Ram and Sita Devi were in the forest. He was always thinking how to make their stay or comfortable. He was thinking ahead of the time what they might need and how he can help. So he was totally in God consciousness or Lord Ram consciousness, totally selfless. We also know the example of Bharat. And as I said, Bharat got a chance to become a king. But that thought was so, you know, like a poisonous, is not appealing to him. And he ended up enthroning Lord Ram's sandals. So he gave up all the comfort of the kingdom. He got, since Lord Ram did not come back with him, he brought Lord Ram's sandals. He enthroned the sandals, and he lived outside of the kingdom in a place called Nandgram, in a small. So he lived like Lord Ram was living in forest, and he ate simple. Well, actually, it says he ate barley cooked in cow's urine for 14 years. He slept on the floor. He wore 3 bags, just like Lord Ram. Basically, he was doing his duty, but he gave up all the position that he could get. So he gave up the position of being a king, and he was just performing the duty as a service to Lord Ram. And he gave all the credit to the sandals of Lord Ram or Lord Ram. He did not take any credit, which indicates that he did not think he was the doer. The doer was still Lord Ram. But he was, doing his duty. So that's another example of a total selfless devotion. Now, Hanuman, we've heard so many stories about Hanumanji and how he, Lord Ram gave him the best position of a servant for all the time to come. Hanumanji was so reliable that Lord Ram depended on him at critical, critical junctures. We know Hanuman went when Lakshmanji was wounded during the battle and almost at the deathbed. Hanumanji went and brought these special herbs from Himalayas. Hanumanji was the one who kind of found Sita Devi, found the location of Sita Devi in Lanka. But the point being, Hanumanji was totally devoted. The only objective of Hanumanji and all these Lakshman and Bharat were to please Lord Ram. The only goal was to make him happy and serve him. And as part of that, they did not care about position, did not care about their own self, and the devotion was total, selfless. We also know about Vibhishan, how he was a demon with a brother of Ravan. So in association of Ravan and all the Rakshasas, still that association could not impact him. Now going back to our second lesson of association, Vibhishan, the pastime of Vibhishan also indicates that how Ravan gave up the good association. Vibhishan was the only good association Ravan had, and he kicked it out. Right. So similarly, coming to us, we should be very careful of picking our association, retaining the good association, and staying away from the bad. But Vibhishan was also, he basically served Lord Ram by going against his own family, his own race of Rakshasas. By one angle, he could also be blamed for the demise of them because he helped Lord Ram in several ways, which helped, to eventually concluded at the death of Ravana. But all these are different examples of how the devotion has to be selfless. So that's our kind of lesson for us, when as we engage in our devotional practices, we should try to be selfless as much as possible, understanding that we may not reach these standards that are exemplified by these characters, but as much as possible, we should try to do a selfless service. Now, what is selfless? Selfless means in the course of service, do not care about position, do not care about recognition, just do it as part of our duty in order to please the Lord, acharyas, or senior Vaishnavas, or our spiritual master. So being a servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, should be our objective to engage in service. Now I want to bring about one contrast here. So I talked about devotion to the Lord, which is total selfless, as exemplified by Lakshman, Hanuman, Bharat, Vibhishan, and there are so many others that we can go over, like Jatayu, and there are so many other examples. But I also want to touch upon quickly on devotion of the Lord, which means reciprocation by the Lord towards his devotee. So because, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, actually in the Jai Vijay pastime itself, when Lord Vishnu comes out, he explains that all my opulences are because I care about my devotee. So Lord Vishnu himself actually giving the credit of all his opulences to his devotees. That's the importance Lord also gives to his devotees. And that's what comes about in the reciprocation. By one dimension, we can see that Lord Ram left the comforts of the kingdom palace and stayed 14 years in forest so that he could deliver all his devotees that were spread around in different places. And he could give a chance to all these devotees to serve him. In that way, he could make his devotees happy. So if the selfless devotion is from the devotee, there is a full reciprocation from the Lord to the devotee. So the idea being, as much as devotees care about the Lord, equally, if not more, Lord also care about his devotees and would go to any extent to to take care of them and to keep them happy. And there's so many examples, we've seen, as Srila Prabhupada had said, and explains in Bhagavad Gita that one of the reasons why Lord comes, to this planet is basically to deliver his devotees, is to make his devotees happy by giving them a chance to serve him. I'll stop here and see if anybody has any question on this lesson. Okay, so we'll move on. This is the fourth one. Might be a little controversial and might have more questions. So Prabhupada, in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Ramayana pastime is discussed, he explains that how Lord Ram is the ideal husband and Mother Sita is the ideal wife. So this is a lesson what we can glean for the householders from the pastime of Ramayana. And Prabhupada in the same also explains, when he discusses the Ramayana pastime, how can a grahastha become an ideal husband or wife like Lord Ram and Mother Sita? And he explains, if we follow the principles of varnashrama. So principles of varnashrama is basically, will help us to become ideal, a householder. And then I looked up and said, what are the principles of varnashrama? And they're basically 3 key qualities that are kind of highlighted, which means, first is charity. So it is as a grahastha, charity. We do charity in the mode of goodness, which means charity at the right time, right place, and right person. And it also suggests that we should, do charity. 50% of our income should go towards supporting the God conscious activities. Now, fact of the matter is, like, if you do 50% now, you will see like some of the grahasthas will fall apart. But the idea is, whatever we can do, whatever best we can do, we should do. The standard, the best in class standard is 50%. Also self-control. So self-control means as a keeping sense gratification in check. One of the example is grahastha should not engage in sexual activities other than to get Krishna conscious children. But in general terms, as a grahastha, we should keep all our sense gratification or materialistic activities under control and very limited. Sacrifice, the best sacrifice in this age is definitely suggested as Sankirtan, that helps to become us God conscious. But, so overall, a general lesson for a householder is always keep Krishna in the center and try to conduct your grahastha household duties by keeping Krishna in the center. In the pastime of Ramayana, we see there are a couple of ethical dilemmas. Now it's called ethical dilemma because as a grahastha, we are more likely to run into an ethical dilemma which present us one or more moral options. So it's easy to choose between, if one option is a moral and the other is immoral, it's easy to pick between those. But generally we get face to face with ethical dilemma, which means there are 2 moral options. One is more moral than the other, and it becomes a choice which one we pick. In the Ramayana pastime, we know for Lord Ram, he had to decide to send Mother Sita away. So that was basically his dilemma between his duty as a king versus his duty as a husband. And he chose his duty as a king over his duty as a husband. he did not totally give up his duty as a husband. He still, Sita Devi was in his kingdom, properly situated under good care of sages. And, but at that time, as a king, he had to make that choice. And this pastime, like, we could get into more detail. We don't have time today, but it's worthwhile discussing in one of the later sessions, because there's much more to learn to understand what was Lord's thinking in that pastime. The other is Dasarath Maharaj. As a husband, he gave a promise to his wife Keikei, and she was demanding now that Ram should be sent away. And it conflicted with his duty as a father to a son, or more as a devotee to Lord Ram, right? A difficult choice. For Lakshman, again, as a husband versus Lord, Lakshman left his wife, accompanied Lord Ram 14 years, chose service to Lord Ram as over his own household duties or as a husband. And the last one, but not that important, is the Sugriva. We see a small example of when Bali was killed. Sugriva was, became the king of monkeys, and he got carried away with the comfort of the kingdom and sense gratification, where he was delayed in service to the Lord. So the point being, these are just examples. Point being, in a grasta house, in a grasta ashram, there are bound to be ethical dilemmas that we will face, and we should be very cognizant and cautious in picking the right option. There's no, I'm not saying any of this is a right and wrong answer. If you look at all these four, eventually it was Lord's Leela, like not even a blade of grass moved without Lord's permission. So at the highest level, it was all orchestrated by Lord's will. But at our level, we should be very picky when faced with a dilemma, thoughtful, using our intelligence as best as we can. So I'll stop here and see if anybody has any questions or comments. No questions? So if no questions, then we'll stop here. And I know Nand Gopal Prabhu, you want to do Narsing Aarti? Go ahead. Oh, sorry. So yeah, let's give another chance. Does anybody has any question or comment?
Very nice lecture, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we'll end. Nand Gopal Prabhu, do you want to do the Narsing Aarti?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll end the class here, and we'll do the Narsing Aarti. For those who want to stick around, please attend the Narsing Aarti. So with that, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah.
So let us just pray to Lord Nrsimha, who is the divine protector of all the devotees. In the current time of anxiety, shelter at his lotus feet can be the best medicine for all of us. So with the mood and prayers,
We can hear.
so yeah. Thank you. So I'll be chanting 2 times. So first time, just feel it, and wherever you are, if you can stop and follow the second time, you don't need to unmute yourself. Just pray to Lord Nrsimha for protection. Thank you. Namaste Narasingaya. Namaste Narasingaya. Prahlad Lad Dahine. Prahlad Lad Dahine. Ranya Kashipurvaksha Ranya Kashipurvaksha Shrilatankana Kalaye Shrilatankana कालाये तो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा ईतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बहिर्नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा बहिर्नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहामदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये नरसिंहामदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरे नख अद्भुत शृंगा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु अनुबृंगं केशवधीर्ता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव कर कमलवरे नख अद्भुत शृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तन्नुबृंगा केशवधीर्ता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव 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 जय नरसिंहदेव जय भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जय भक्त प्रहलाद निताई गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताई गौर हरि बोल निताई गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताई गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद विघ्न विनाशक लक्ष्मी नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय भक्तराज प्रहलाद महाराज की जय जगत श्री प्रभुपाद की हरे कृष्णा
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Panchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Yeah.